When James got down on one knee at the family dinner, everyone gasped. Everyone except me. Because the moment I saw that velvet box, my heart didn't skip with joy. It clenched in cold, sharp disbelief. He thought I'd cry, that I'd cover, my face whisper yes through happy tears. He thought I'd cry with joy. I almost laughed. My eyes flicked to Olivia, sitting across the table, her brow furrowed just slightly. She knew something was off, too. I glanced at the diamond. Big, sparkling, showy. James's voice shook just enough to seem emotional. "Natalie, you're my everything. Will you marry me?" My mother clapped her hands to her mouth, tears welling up. The entire table waited, breathless. I smiled softly, feeling every eye on me. I nodded, whispered, "Yes," and let him slide the ring onto my finger. Applause erupted, cameras flashed. My mother dabbed her eyes, whispering, "Oh, sweetheart, I knew he was the one." But inside I was ice, because tucked in my purse, folded neatly, was a receipt James never thought I'd find. Proof that this ring wasn't a spontaneous declaration of love. It was part of a carefully rehearsed performance. As I raised my glass for the toast, my fingers brushed the cool metal of the ring. It glittered under the restaurant lights, but it felt heavy, false, like a prop. I clinked glasses with my family, lips curling into a perfect, practiced smile. James leaned in, whispering, "You make me the happiest man alive." I kissed his cheek lightly, feeling the sting of betrayal simmer beneath my skin. He lied, and I let him think I believed. But the truth was already burning a hole through this night. I glanced at Olivia again, and she gave me the tiniest shake of her head. Not disbelief, but warning. She too had seen the cracks. She too knew that James was not the perfect man my family thought he was. Dinner continued in a blur of laughter, congratulations, and wine. I played my part perfectly, laughing at the right moments, letting James hold my hand, squeezing his arm. But every moment brought me closer to the reveal I had been planning, because the receipt didn't just show the cost of the ring. It showed the date, weeks ago, when James had told me he was working late. And worse, it showed the matching earrings, bought for someone else. I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door behind me, pressing my hands to the sink. My reflection stared back, flawless makeup, shining eyes. But inside, my heart pounded like a war drum. I took a deep breath, smoothing my dress, and pulled the receipt from my purse. I ran my fingers over the paper, reading it again, grounding myself. Not tonight, James. Not the fairy tale you'd rehearsed. I smiled faintly at my reflection, because soon the cameras would be rolling again, but this time they'd capture a different ending, and none of them, not even James, would see it coming. When I stepped back to the table, I pasted on my best radiant, glowing fiancé smile. Everyone erupted into cheers again, and James pulled me close, kissing my temple. A girl like me should feel lucky, right? That's what they all saw. Lucky. Natalie, with the perfect man, the perfect ring, the perfect future. I let myself melt into his arms, for show, while inside the questions burned hotter. Why had he bought 2 pieces of jewelry? Who were the earrings for? Why had he lied about the timing, the cost, the details? I felt the sting of betrayal right under my skin. Diane, my mom, squeezed my hand across the table. "You've always deserved a love like this, honey." I smiled weakly, forcing the warmth into my eyes. If only she knew. If only any of them knew. Olivia watched me carefully all night. She was the only one who saw through the surface. She'd been the one who first raised the tiny alarms, asking, "Have you noticed James acting off?" But I hadn't wanted to see it, not until the receipt fell into my hands. James told story after story that night, painting himself as the devoted fiancé, the generous provider. He played the room like a master, holding my hand, kissing my fingers, whispering inside jokes. He was so good at it, I almost forgot myself. I let myself lean into the moment for a second. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Maybe the earrings were for his mom, or a coworker, or something innocent. But then I remembered. He lied, but my smile never slipped. He had told me he was at work that Thursday night. I remembered texting him, hearing nothing for hours, and then getting a tired, "Sorry, babe," slammed at the office. And yet, that was the night he'd gone shopping. For the ring. For the earrings. I watched him pour wine into my glass, his fingers grazing mine. So gentle. So convincing. And yet when I searched his face, I saw something shallow beneath the charm. Like a mirror reflecting back exactly what I wanted, not who he really was. My heart twisted. How many other things had he hidden? How many nights had I believed his excuses, forgiven his disappearances, trusted his words? I swallowed the lump in my throat, feeling the weight of emotional manipulation settle heavy on my chest. I glanced at Olivia, catching her watching me with a quiet question in her eyes. I gave her the smallest, most deliberate nod. She relaxed, slightly knowing. Yes, I saw it now. I wasn't blind anymore. As the evening wound on, I played along, thanking guests, kissing James on cue, smiling for the inevitable photos. But inside, I was a storm, gathering strength, waiting for the moment I'd tear this perfect picture apart. I thought about all the times he'd gaslit me, made me feel crazy, overreactive, insecure. The times he'd said, "Why do you always assume the worst, Nat?" The times he'd smiled so sweetly while hiding things behind his back. My fingers brushed the edge of the ring again, twisting it slightly, feeling its weight. It wasn't just a symbol of love anymore. It was a symbol of proof, of everything he thought he'd gotten away with. And I knew. This wasn't just a quiet discovery. This was the opening act, because soon the real show was going to start. That night, lying in bed next to James, I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding so loud I wondered if he could hear it. His arm was draped across my waist, his breathing slow and steady, like a man completely at peace. But I wasn't. He lied, but my smile never slipped. That phrase repeated over and over in my mind like a dark mantra. I thought about the receipt tucked in my nightstand drawer. I thought about the earrings he never gave me. I thought about the late nights, the vague answers, the things that suddenly didn't add up. Every little moment began replaying in my mind. The last-minute canceled date nights, the sudden work trips, the texts he answered too quickly or not at all. And always, the same smooth excuses. "You know how crazy work is. Baby, you're overthinking again. You trust me, right?" I turned slightly, watching him sleep. His face looked so peaceful, so genuine. But I knew now it was just the surface. I felt like I was sleeping next to a stranger wearing James's skin. The next morning, I woke up early, unable to shake the growing anxiety. Over coffee, I scrolled through old messages, old photos, trying to piece together what I had missed. My heart twisted tighter with every breadcrumb I found. Olivia called, her voice cautious. "Nat, are you okay?" I hesitated, then whispered, "I'm not sure." There was a long pause, then her quiet voice. "Do you want me to help you figure it out?" My throat closed up. Yes. That day, I watched James move around the apartment, kissing my cheek, heading to work like nothing was wrong. But I saw the shift now. The narcissistic charm, the little manipulations, the ease with which he steered conversations away from hard questions. I dug deeper. credit card charges that didn't match his stories, restaurant reservations for 2 on nights I'd stayed home, a perfume scent on his jacket that wasn't mine. The panic grew, but so did my determination. I realized I'd been living under a spell of emotional abuse. Slow, subtle, corrosive. Gaslighting that made me doubt my instincts. Smiles that covered betrayals. Sweet words that hid sharp truths. By the end of the day, my hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I wasn't just a suspicious girlfriend anymore. I was a woman on the edge of discovery, and the edge of a choice, because soon I'd have to decide, confront him quietly, or make sure everyone knew. And deep down, I already knew which one I was going to pick. The tipping point came on a random Tuesday afternoon. James was at the gym, but something in my gut twisted hard. I checked his location. Off. I checked his credit card. Dinner, not a gym. My hands trembled as I sat alone on the couch, staring at the receipt I'd found days before. This wasn't heartbreak. It was calculation. He hadn't just slipped up once. He had been moving through our life with a double face, crafting 2 parallel realities. One for me, one for whoever was on the other side of those earrings. Olivia came over, eyes wide, her arms full of snacks and comfort. We spread out everything on the coffee table, the receipts, the texts, the screenshots. She looked at me, heartbroken. Nat, you don't deserve this. I bit my lip hard, tasting blood, willing myself not to cry. I thought about every time James had wrapped his arms around me, whispered, "I love you," kissed the top of my head. How many of those moments were borrowed, stolen, half given, because part of him was already with someone else? I scrolled through social media, heart racing, and then there it was, a photo, buried on a friend of a friend's page, from the night he was working late. James, dressed sharply, arm around a woman I didn't recognize, both of them laughing at some rooftop bar. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hand flew to my stomach, nausea rolling up hard. Olivia squeezed my shoulder. "Nat, I'm so sorry." But under the shock, something sharp was rising. Something colder, stronger. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to sit across the table from him, tears streaming down my face, asking why. He betrayed me, but I held the power. He just didn't know it yet. That night, James walked through the door, all smiles, holding takeout. Surprise. "Babe," he called, kissing my cheek. I smiled softly, letting him think everything was normal. My hands were steady. My heart was steel, because the proposal had happened. The ring was on my finger. The family had celebrated. And now, I was going to show him, and everyone, exactly who he really was. I planned it carefully, down to the detail. Family dinner, just like last time. He thought it would be another round of congratulations. He thought he had me wrapped up in his perfect little lie. But this time, I wasn't just Natalie, the devoted fiancé. I was Natalie, the woman holding all the evidence, ready to burn his carefully built world to the ground. And the best part? He wouldn't even see it coming. I sat in the quiet of my bedroom, the ring on my finger catching the dim light. I twisted it slowly, staring at the diamond that everyone else had gasped over. To me, it wasn't a promise. It was a weapon. They think this symbolizes love, but I know the truth. The night before the family dinner, I barely slept. I lay awake, feeling the waves of pain rise and crash over me. How had I let it get this far? How many moments had I ignored, rationalized, explained away because I wanted to believe in him? Every late night, every unanswered call, every time he gaslighted me. "Baby, You're imagining things. You always assume the worst, Nat. It all replayed in my mind like a cruel highlight reel. I clenched my fists so hard my nails bit into my palms. Olivia texted past midnight. "Are you sure you want to do this tomorrow?" I stared at the screen, heart thudding, before replying, "Yes, he needs to be exposed. And not just to me, to everyone. I wasn't the only one he'd fooled. My parents adored him. My friends envied me. To the outside world, James was the perfect fiancé. Thoughtful, funny, devoted. But I knew better now. And it was time they did too. The next evening, as I dressed for dinner, my hands shook slightly. Not from fear, from anger. Cold, searing, anger. He betrayed me. But I held the power. He thought I'd stay quiet, keep the peace, protect his image. He had no idea what was coming. James picked me up, beaming, acting like the doting man everyone believed he was. He kissed my hand. As we walked in, whispered, "You look stunning, baby." I smiled, barely, stomach churning. "You'll regret calling me baby tonight." At the dinner table, my parents gushed over wedding plans, future grandkids, honeymoon destinations. James charmed everyone with stories, jokes, affectionate glances. Olivia caught my eye across the table, her face pale but steady. As the main course cleared, James raised his glass, toasting to love, to family, to the future. I lifted my own glass, the diamond ring glinting as I clinked against his. My smile was small, but inside, I was on fire. Because I had the receipt in my purse, folded neatly, ready to be placed right on the table. Proof of the betrayal, the double life, the earrings meant for someone else. The gaslighting ends here, I thought, feeling my pulse pound in my throat. I took a deep breath as the room buzzed with laughter and chatter. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was the moment before the storm. And James, the man who thought he controlled the narrative, was about to realize he never saw the real me at all. I sat at the dinner table, feeling the weight of the moment pressing against my chest. Everyone was laughing, smiling, clinking glasses, except me. That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't Natalie, the girl who stayed silent anymore. I was Natalie, the girl holding the detonator. I watched James's hands move as he spoke, his laughter filling the room, his charm wrapping everyone in a spell. My mother beamed at him. My father nodded in approval. Olivia shifted nervously, eyes darting to me, waiting. She knew something was about to break. I gently placed my hand on my purse, feeling the folded receipt inside. My pulse slowed. My breathing deepened. I wasn't rushing this. I wasn't going to blurt it out or sob dramatically. I was going to slice through the lies with precision, with control. James leaned toward me, brushing his fingers down my arm. "You okay, baby?" His voice was low, intimate, confident. I smiled softly, tilting my head. "I'm perfect." I just smiled. Because they had no idea. I waited until the wine glasses were refilled, the table relaxed, the moment ripe. Then, quietly I tapped my glass. Everyone turned to me, faces glowing with love and expectation. "I just wanted to say thank you," I began, voice even, calm, "for supporting us, for believing in us." I reached over and touched James's hand lightly. He squeezed mine, smiling that picture-perfect smile. Then I pulled the folded paper from my purse, unfolding it slowly, deliberately. "And because you've all been so supportive," I continued, "I thought you should all know exactly what you're supporting." James's smile faltered just slightly, a flicker. "Babe, what's that?" he asked, his voice dipping, cautious. My family looked confused, leaning in slightly. Olivia held her breath. I laid the receipt flat on the table, sliding it to the center. "This," I said softly, "is the receipt for this beautiful ring. And also for the earrings James bought." I turned, locking eyes with him, the ones he never gave me. The table went silent, the air sucked clean from the room. James paled. "Nat, wait," he started, but I raised a hand gently. "Please, let's not make this messy. I'm just sharing facts." My parents stared, stunned. Olivia's eyes widened, her mouth slightly open. And James, the man who had lied, manipulated, and gaslighted me, sat frozen, realizing his perfect facade had cracked wide open. I sat back, hands folded calmly, heart pounding but face serene. This wasn't chaos. This was control. And for the first time in months, I felt powerful. James's face drained of color as his eyes darted between me, the receipt, and my stunned parents. "Natalie, baby, let's talk about this privately," he said, his voice low, almost pleading. But I just smiled, folding my hands calmly on the table. I just smiled. Because they had no idea. My mother's brow furrowed, her voice soft, confused. "Honey, what's going on?" Olivia leaned forward slightly, eyes sharp and locked on James. My father shifted in his seat, tension rising like static in the room. I took a slow breath. "What's going on?" I said evenly. "Is that James bought this ring during a weekend he told me he was working late. And he also bought earrings for another woman." I turned, looking directly at James. "Isn't that right?" James shook his head quickly, his hands lifting. No, it's not what you think. Baby, please." The words were familiar, the gaslighting reflex automatic. But this time, I didn't flinch. "Save it," I said quietly, my voice calm, razor sharp. "We're past the part where you explain things away. I've seen the photos, the dates, the messages." His mouth opened and closed, like a man scrambling for oxygen. My parents sat frozen, their eyes wide, watching the man they'd adored unravel in real time. Olivia sat back, her face a mixture of heartbreak and fierce pride. She had known. She had waited. And now, she watched me take back control. James reached across the table, but I pulled my hands back slowly, almost gracefully. "No," I said softly. "Don't touch me." The power shift was palpable, and I saw it hit him, right there, in front of everyone. For years, he had orchestrated the perfect image, the perfect couple, the perfect man. But all it had taken was one slip, one receipt, one woman determined to reclaim herself. And now, the house of cards was collapsing. The silence at the table was heavy. My mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. My father clenched his jaw. And James looked small, smaller than I had ever seen him. Lifted my glass once more, the diamond ring glinting in the light. "To honesty," I said softly, "to seeing people as they really are." My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I was the calmest person in the room. James sat back, shoulders sagging, defeated. He whispered, "Natalie, please." But there was nothing left for him to say. Nothing I wanted to hear. Nothing I needed. Because the truth was, I had already walked away emotionally. Now, I just had to finish walking away physically. I left the ring on the table. That was the first thing. I slid it off my finger slowly, deliberately, and placed it right next to the receipt. The symbols of his lies, side by side. I walked away, with the ring and my revenge. James's eyes widened. "Nat, Wait, you're just leaving? I smiled softly. Yes, James, I am. My voice was calm, almost kind. It wasn't anger fueling me now. It was clarity. A quiet, clean break. Olivia followed me out, her arm wrapped tightly around my shoulders. We stepped into the cool night air, and I inhaled deeply, feeling a weight lift from my chest I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for months. Behind me, inside the restaurant, I knew James was probably spiraling, explaining, lying, spinning, stories. But none of it mattered anymore. His words had lost their power. His grip on me was gone. Back at my apartment, I sat on the couch with Olivia, wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea cradled in my hands. We sat in silence for a long time before I whispered, I don't even think I loved him anymore. I think I loved the idea of him. Olivia squeezed my hand, her eyes shining. You're free now, Nat. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls, texts, voicemails. Please, let me explain. I made a mistake. I love you. I blocked his number. I blocked his socials. My revenge wasn't in fighting. It was in removing myself completely. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt. I reconnected with friends. I threw myself into my work. I decorated my space just the way I wanted, without compromise. Every small decision felt like a stitch repairing me. Sometimes, I'd remember the moment he proposed, the cameras flashing, the applause, the ring sliding onto my finger. And I'd smile faintly, not because I missed it, but because I survived it. I survived him. The power shift was real. I wasn't the girl who waited for apologies anymore. I wasn't the woman holding on to betrayal, hoping it would change. I was the woman who chose herself, who walked away, who knew her worth. One afternoon, Olivia and I sat in the park, sunlight filtering through the trees. She bumped my shoulder gently and said, You're stronger than you've ever been. You know that, right? I smiled, feeling the truth of it settle deep in my bones. I thought about the future, the real one, the one I would build without lies, without manipulation, without shrinking myself to fit someone else's needs. And I knew. I was ready. He thought he'd own my story forever. But in the end, I was the one who held the pen. And when I finally closed that chapter, it wasn't with heartbreak. It was with freedom.